Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Teen Wolf, as well as the latest episode of Aftermath. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you don't want to hear about, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows and I'm talking about tonight, so you can skip to what you want to listen to. First of all, I'm going to talk about this week's episode of Teen Wolf, and I really like it because it's like that's kind of a big thing about this season. It's kind of a trip down memory lane because you see everyone struggling because everyone's got this little nagging feeling in the back of their mind. It's like something's not right, something's missing. It pops up in different ways for different people. Like the fact is, Scott keeps walking past that locker and he feels like there's something there. Even Lydia, like when she first came to school, she kind of leaned against the locker that Styles. And it's just like, but it's ending Malia when she was hooking up with that dude, which I'm a side note that I thought, maybe I'm misremembering. I thought Malia and Styles kind of got back together, which doesn't mean anything there because it's not like she remembers he existed anyway. So like that, which interesting enough, I don't know that actor's name. I've seen him in stuff like, for instance, Casey Undercover for one thing, but it's just kind of the one thing that kind of pops in my mind. I saw him, but maybe they did. I don't know. To me, it's a whole situation about Lydia talking about how she loved the person that's missing. So that's why I was kind of like, I guess him and Malia never got back together after season 4. Maybe, I don't know. I thought they did. I thought they got back together in season 5. Well, maybe like they were kind of okay in the first half, but after the second half they weren't. Or maybe because it might be the kind of Allison and Isaac situation where it's like Allison, obviously you always remember your first love for like Styles. He's always been in love with Lydia since like forever. Because also the thing is, it's like, what about Lydia and Parrish? Is that going nowhere? Which we got Parrish this episode, except he's like, guys, because Mason and Corey are coming to him about the whole situation because it's like, okay, because they figured it out because they're like, okay, the Ghost Riders were here. I was so certain. I was like, oh God, Corey's about to get it. It's like, no, that sucks because they had that whole moment at the beginning with him and Mason. I was like, so cute, and adorable. It's like Mason's like super smart. It's like they're there to kind of make up for stuff, and then Mason's kind of like, I got like a 4.9 GPA. It's like, I didn't know it actually went that high. It's like, but I'm here because, oh, you're here because of me? He's like, are you mad? He's like, super mad, and then kisses him. It's like, that's so adorable. But I was like, no, it's like, you set up that beautiful moment just to take him away. It's like, okay, he's not. Which apparently Corey's kind of got the upper hand. There's the whole Schrodinger's law about, that whole situation. I'm not about to get into it because I'm going to butcher the explanation. Essentially, Corey has some kind of, like, the way his power works, he can actually see the Ghost Rider. So, like, when he turns invisible and when he makes someone else turns invisible, he can see something that doesn't quite exist, and they kind of don't quite exist. Also, we saw how they made that dude disappear. Is that how they make everyone disappear, or what? That was pretty brutal. Had the ropes tied around his neck on both ends, and they just yanked it and popped out of existence. But nevertheless, I was going back to it like Parrish is like, hey, we got a murder on the case. This means I don't have to tap into being a hellhound. I don't have to worry about being like something supernatural related like the Beast or anything like that. It's just me doing my job as a cop, and let's leave it at that. So that's one question. Like, is there no him and Lydia anymore because of that whole situation? Because, we'll kind of see. And also, I was super excited when I saw him. Coach is back. Because I love it. Just like, he was pops in pretty often in like the earlier seasons. I think season 3 was the last season he popped up frequently in. I don't think he didn't pop up in season 5 until near the end. I'm trying to remember, did he pop up at all in season 4? I think he did, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think he did. But season 5, like, he wasn't there until like the second, like nearing the end of the second half of season 5. But nevertheless, he's up there telling, it's like, what are you guys doing here? Go out. Why are you studying? No, get the hell out. Go out and have fun. Meet some girls. Corey is like, we're gay. He's like, good. That's good. Just go out. Gays. Just now get the hell out. Even trashing on Styles. Scott being like, yeah, McCall here wants to. He's the good team captain, but he's up here being like, oh, you know what? I'm not. I don't think I want to. I want to focus on my grades, further my education. It's like, you see how disgusted Coach is. It's like, you make me sick. All that should matter is lacrosse, being the best. But for you, you want to further your education. You disgust me. I love it. Just like every time Coach pops up, I love it. Because this episode also had, Liam, because the conversation is coming up, Scott's like, yo, I want you to kind of take the spot. Like, once I'm gone, like, you're the one that's got to step up. He believes in Liam. It's like, you just got to step up and want it. And then you had, like, Coach being like, that's it. McCall, look at you. You got that spunk. It's just like, that's exactly what a leader said. He points to Liam and be like, I can't wait to squish that little baby face of yours. It's like Coach enjoys his job a little too much. And also that point when Liam was like signing up, he was like, what changed your mind? He's like, I held another guy's hand. And he's like, I know exactly what you mean. It's like, why does that make sense to you? Like, that's such a vague statement. It's like, but that makes perfect sense to you. Sure thing, Coach. Whatever you say. And also, I know I'm just jumping all over the place. Another I think I found very interesting was what Lydia's mom was saying. It's like, because Corey and Mason came to her, it's like, yo, this might be like a werewolf thing. It's like, okay, no. Okay, we already dealt with this with that thing, the Beast, and basically about Scott. Because I was wondering about that, because I was like, people got to know about Scott, because like, she kind of referenced when Scott was in the library last season, when he was fighting the Beast. Like, everyone saw the Beast, plus everyone saw, like, Scott wolfing out, but like no one's really showing him any difference. So I'm like, because she explained it in a way being like, yeah, that was all a hallucination. You guys were imagining it was a bear. You didn't see Scott with claws and eyes. I was like, because there were a crap ton of people in that library. So I was like, oh, I was expecting it. But it's like, now that I think about it, it's like, that hasn't come up yet. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. And that kind of explains why Lydia's mom kind of explained it away, because she's like, this is the safe space. None of that supernatural stuff here. Enjoy your school time and stuff like that. I mean, you can't ignore it. Like, Beacon Hills is Beacon Hills because it's literally a beacon for the supernatural. So it's like, you can pretend like it's all normal and everything, but Beacon Hills will always attract the supernatural. Even with the show ending, like, they're setting it up so like I feel like Liam, Hayden, and Mason are going to be the next generation to kind of take over things. But it's like, they're going to have to deal with the supernaturals. That's kind of the whole point, which also makes you think at the end of this, you might see, that'd be kind of cool if you see at the end of this, Liam becoming an alpha. Maybe he ends up maybe he has the potential to become a true alpha, because that's like a very rare thing. That's what makes Scott so impressive, because like someone able to become an alpha on their own sheer will alone without having to take it like other people. But the thing I'm sorry I got off book here, but the whole Malia thing I thought was kind of cute. I'd almost forgotten about it until she did it. And like, at first that guy was cuddling her, but she couldn't get comfortable, so she rolled him over and cuddled him and kind of like bear hugged him. And I was like, right, because Styles could never get really comfortable when it was like came to holding her and stuff like that, so she just held him instead, and that was kind of how they fell asleep. I was like, right, I completely forgot about that until like, which I feel a little ashamed about that, because I mean, because I recently went back and rewatched like the first 4.5 seasons, the first half of season 5, like back before the second half of season 5 started last year / this year, because I can't remember exactly when last season. So I think last season started like nearing the tail end of 2015. Nevertheless, but it's just like everyone's struggling to remember, because even Scott, even having that memory of being like in the woods, like he's like piecing everything, and he's like, why would I be out here in the woods by myself to find a dead body? How would I get here? I didn't have a car. This is all before I was a werewolf or whatever. And it's like, why would the sheriff be coming to find me? And then they all piece it together. It's like, there's someone from our lives missing. And it was like, I think I had a best friend, because Malia brought up the fact of like someone chaining her to kind of keep her in balance, because she's kind of been losing it a little bit lately, because Styles was always there to kind of keep her calm. And even Lydia's kind of remembering it to a certain degree, where it was like she relived a moment from last episode when Styles was taken. Obviously, he was invisible, but she felt him, she heard his voice, being tugged around, then seeing the, well, I don't know if that was her perspective of seeing them, or was that just kind of it reliving the memory through her, in a way where it's like she remembers the feeling, but not exactly what went down, that type of thing. But two things kind of popped up in this episode that are kind of weird. Well, three multiple, like that whole murder situation. Like it deals with the guy that stole the helium. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm guessing he was the guy that was the victim at the end, that Mason, Liam, and Hayden found last episode. I'm guessing that was him, the guy that Scott and Styles were chasing at the beginning of last week's episode, the premiere. So I'm like, so what's this all got to do with a murder? Because Deaton himself said it, like, usually things are kind of weird. Like, it's one thing for them to kind of take people, but for them to completely wipe away their existence, I mean, because that was the legend, that they just take people. They didn't know they wiped you from existence. But also the fact is that they usually only come during times of war and kind of calamity. That's what kind of draws them. Because that's what I was wondering. I was like, why choose certain souls? It's like, why these specific people did you choose? But, you know, maybe it's a situation where someone's controlling them. Maybe specifically like the new teacher. Just a little suspicious. I didn't bring him up last episode. I completely forgot about that because by the time I thought about it, I'd already finished recording. I was like, it's not really worth going back. But, you know, like the fact is everyone was fawning over him and everything. But the fact is that he ended up stopping Scott from opening that locker is a little suspicious. I mean, because why I'm suspicious of him? Because let's not forget, he wouldn't be the first teacher at Beacon Hill to have actually been a bad guy. Let's not forget about Jordan. Wasn't her name? I'm pretty sure. Wasn't it like Jordan Blake? The druid from season 3 that got close to Derek. But another thing is like, because I figured out if anyone, Lydia would be kind of the one that was kind of like in the know-how with this whole situation. Not know-how, but like she is the best one equipped for the situation, being a banshee. But I mean, it's like banshees usually are only tied to death. Plus the first episode kind of showed like she can't sit someone that's been erased from existence, because that, even though that's like a form of death, it's not the exact same thing. But it's because in general, she as a banshee is kind of tuned to the supernatural. So there was that lady that kind of appeared by her desk, like, which I can only, because I don't remember where Styles sat. I mean, that was like near, I don't know. But I mean, I guess, you know, with rearranges and everything, they just left the desk empty. Because I swear, like, Styles kind of sat more like towards either the front of the classroom or the middle. I don't remember him sitting in the back. But nevertheless, like, Lydia turns towards that MDC, and it's a lady standing there kind of in looks like a doctor's outfit. So that was what I was wondering. Is it from the hospital that Scott's mom works at or something like that? I guess, I don't know. But nevertheless, when the lady opened her mouth, it ended up being like a train. Now, Lydia had earlier in the episode, like, heard that train sound before. So what I'm wondering is that someone who's been taken, like a residual kind of after image of them trying to talk to her? Like that's what it sounds like when they try to bridge the gap between non-existence and existence. That little middle ground, whatever spark of them is left trying to communicate. Maybe that's what that is. And maybe, you know, maybe they come across Styles and the same thing will happen. I bring it up again. How do you fight something that literally wipes people from existence? How do you fight that? I mean, that's kind of going to be the whole point. But there's something interesting was like, well, first of all, Liam and Corey having a problem with each other. It's like, Corey brings up a good point. You forgave Hayden out of anybody. She was like loyal to Theo. I wasn't the only one. Even Mason tried to defend him. It's like, everyone kind of trusted Theo. Even you did. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason why you tried to kill Scott and everything. But, which I'm wondering, is that going to come back in some shape or form? Because of the whole, like, him getting kind of dragged into, I would assume, hell by Kira last season. I mean, I figured that was kind of setting up for something. I was like, I don't think he's going, especially because I brought it up. I saw him, like during the commercials at, like, the kind of like the premiere event for it. So I was kind of like, maybe he's going to be in this season, maybe not. Maybe they're just bringing in an all cast members type of situation like that. Makes you wonder, will Colton Haynes kind of make up an appearance or not? I mean, he hasn't been in the show since season 2. They mentioned him like the first time in like season 3, but like that was kind of the last time he was brought up. I mean, it's like, you never know. Cause that's why I'm kind of hoping like Derek comes back too. But it's like, you got Coach coming back. I was wondering if we would get him or not, but I felt like you'd have to keep him around. He is a hellhound, but Parrish, it's going to be interesting to see if he decides to stick around town too, even when everyone else graduates. Maybe he'll be there to maybe in a way you can think of it. I mean, I hope it doesn't turn out like that, but maybe he can be their Stilinski, like Styles' dad, being a sheriff that knows the truth and everything, especially being a supernatural creature himself, or maybe he'll end up leaving Beacon Hills too at the end of it. I don't know. Like I said, there's many more episodes to go before we kind of reach the conclusion of all of this. But the point is, I kind of sided with Corey. It is not cool that he does constantly kind of pop up out of nowhere. But it seems like him and Liam have kind of buried a hatchet, because it's like, hey, for Mason's sake, we both care about him. I love him. You're his best friend. So it's like, we don't want to put Mason in a situation where he has to choose between us, which is the right mentality to have. But then basically they find like a library card to the student that disappeared. The one they could remember at first, but then excuse me, I was going to walk past it, but I might as well, have some kind of manners of some sort, right? Anyway, they remembered him, and then basically the card that was left. It didn't disappear. All the information on it, like it was blank. But then I was literally about to call him Jackson. Liam put it in, all his information popped up. Then they look at the card. The card's got his face and information on it again. It's like, so why did that come back? Is it because he's only freshly been deleted from existence? Or was it something else? Is it like if you get enough people remembering somebody, then they come back? I mean, he didn't come back, but his existence was kind of brought back. So, or is it just because they're connected to all this? Because Corey, that's a thing too. I wasn't expecting Corey to play such a huge pivotal role in this, which means he's kind of like possibly a target in the future because he's so important. He's the only one that can see, because the only people that can see the Ghost Riders are their victims, those chosen by him. But it also seems like they can actually see Corey too. I don't remember if I mentioned that or not, but yeah, they can apparently see Corey even when he's hidden. But for them, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, they only go after but that's the thing. Corey's right there in front of him. He saw them, yet it's like they ignored him. So it's like they're going after specific people. It's like maybe there's certain traits about certain people that they're drawn to. Like I said, Dean said it himself, like they're drawn to war and calamity. Maybe that plays a part of it. I mean, because like I said, it's a straight up murder, and there's no way that happens around the same time the Ghost Riders kind of roll into town. So it must, plus all that missing helium. What's that supposed to be? That's about something. And then the biggest, strangest thing of all is apparently Styles' mom is alive. Don't know how that is. It's like, so when Styles doesn't exist, his mom's alive. What is up with that? Because it's like, his mom died like a long time ago, and that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's nothing to draw a conclusion from. It's like, maybe the essence of Styles' life, maybe there has to be a balance or something. I know it's weird to say, but maybe in some shape or form there has to be a balance in the universe. So by taking Styles away, they had to give his mom back or something. That's the only thing I'm gonna chalk up to. Not unless she's there to keep him from remembering. Like, she's there to keep him from remembering their son or something. I don't know what that's about. It's like your wife. And the moment it said wife, I was like, wait, it couldn't be talking about Scott's mom, because like I legitimately thought that was where that was going to go. I thought Scott's mom and Styles' dad would hook up, just because it's like, I keep referring to her as Scott's mom because I was like, I keep thinking to myself, her name's Melissa, right? I know I'm not imagining that, because I don't think that's the actress's name who plays her. Nevertheless, that was just kind of, I kind of always expected that because it seemed like they were getting close. I mean, Styles and Scott are already brothers, so I mean, granted, we don't know where his whole dad situation stands, because the last time we saw his dad was like the second half of season 3. We haven't subsequently seen or heard from him since. I don't know whether that's a storyline they just dropped, or it's just like he has his reasons why he hasn't come back, stuff like that. But nevertheless, so not unless things are secretly working between his mom and his dad, but it's like I always thought that, but that obviously changes now. I mean, it changes up so much. I mean, because it doesn't change the overall everything that's happened, but it kind of puts things in a different perspective, because it's like there's there's blanks of being like, why was this a thing? Why are we like this? So I don't know, because like even with Malia, like she came across the word style in her book, and she put it in a red marker and then continued highlighting everything else, because that's just her way of doing things. Styles never like helped her kind of fix that habit of hers or whatever, but still. But it does seem like a big reason why they have, because to me I chalked it up, the biggest reason why they were able to remember Styles is because he played such a pivotal role in everyone else's lives. So that's why. But maybe the main reason why they did is because he played such a pivotal role to Lydia. Lydia as a Banshee, in a way you could think of it, is like she's sending out a frequency to kind of let everyone know, like, wait, something's not right. She feels that something's not right, and she kind of pushes that onto others with her Banshee powers to a certain degree. I don't know. It does seem like she is the key to all of it. It's like possibly getting Styles back all comes down to her as well. So I don't know. We will just have to wait to see. A very good episode. It's just like every time it's just like, oh, they're remembering. Yeah, remember Styles, please. Because even there was that thing at the beginning where like Scott brought up like the fact that he said, yeah, your backhand sucks. It's like Liam's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. And then Liam kind of shows him, he's like, oh, he's actually pretty good. And he's like, I guess I was thinking about someone else. So because for one, I love Styles. I've said it again because he's such an interesting character. Like I said, literally the only main part of the team that's still human after everything. I mean, granted, the whole being possessed and everything by Nagitsun, but still, out of everyone, he's the only one that managed to stay human through everything that's happened. And he's kind of the detective of the group. He's the one that kind of put the pieces together. The opening kind of makes it seem like now that Styles is kind of gone temporarily, it seems like Lydia's the one that's going to kind of pick up that pacing. Like, she's the one that's kind of, like I said, just from like the introduction when they kind of, show the actors and everything in opening, it seems like it seems like she might be filling that role this season, at least until they get Styles back. So that's going to be very interesting. Like I said, that's just based on what I was seeing at the beginning. So, like I said, because Styles has always been the more detective person of the group. He's the one that kind of typically kind of figures stuff out. He's the one that kind of knows that things are a little hinky. So I think that's what makes this season going to be so much harder on the team, is because like it shows you, even though he's a human, like, he might not have powers or whatever, he might not be a supernatural creature, but it shows you he keeps the team in balance. He brings something to the table. He brings them all together, so. Because that was something between Corey and Mason. It was like, Corey was like, your friend, just because they're your friends, don't make them my friends. And that's kind of the situation with Styles. Styles kind of brought everyone together. For the longest time, it was just him and Scott. But through everything, like, even though Lydia was kind of off in her own world, when this whole thing happened, like, she got sucked into it. Malia kind of came back from the situation she was in. Kira, Allison, now Liam, Mason, Hayden. It's just like so many people have come together. And it's like, because of each other, it's just like this, like, they kind of put it in a Kingdom Hearts reference. Their hearts are connected, even though those connections might be severed, but they're not completely severed. They're still kind of, using what Deaton said, a little bit of a phantom limb of that connection still there, holding on to dear life, not letting go. So, but I know that's just kind of all I really had to say on that. Like, moving on. And now moving on to this week's episode of Aftermath. So in this episode, we had Karen and the family coming across these people who are blocking their path and being like, oh, you have to pay a toll. Now I was wondering, I was like, oh, Josh is like, okay, whoa, we're going to handle this civilly. Like, let's talk now. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, Josh isn't necessarily quick to just, but it's like he's not acting all cautious and everything. He's like, oh, let's talk and everything. And it turns out why he was acting like this, because like, oh, the guy in front of him is Ewing, Karen's dad. Which they've talked, like earlier in the season, Karen and Sally had talked about their family situation, the fact that his dad wasn't around, and for that, Karen harbors a lot of hate towards him. The fact of the matter is, he's sitting there thinking like, oh, he's changed and everything, he's leading this group of people, he's making some tetra so that, people can be cured and everything, which Karen also calls him out because it's like, wait, you're selling it. You're having people trade stuff that they have for a cure, and it's like, Sally, she died, but the fact is, at least she died helping people, and she didn't charge him for anything, so it's like, Dad, you're a bit of a scumbag, which this is also him finding out what happened. I mean, it's, he says like, it's like, oh, like, he really didn't know anything about being a parent until he heard about Sally dying. It's like, I mean, really, at the same time, it's kind of like, you don't really get to mourn her being dead, because it's like, you weren't there to raise her, but then again, it did seem like Karen kept her distance, but it seems like Sally, from time to time over the years, would help him. He'd help her and stuff like that. But Karen, initially, it's kind of wants they screw him, because like basically Ewing's like, stay here. He's even trying to get Matt to stay here. Which in the back of my mind, I'm like, why are you trying to get them to stay? Why are you pushing that so hard? It's like, oh, all of a sudden your family's here. You're like, oh, I want them beside me. I guess it's because like out of anyone, I guess I'm thinking maybe he feels like out of anyone, family will be a lot easier to manipulate, or at least he'd feel a lot safer, because it's like, yeah, you can't trust a lot of people, or like this day and age, you can't trust a lot of people around you, but at the very least, if you have family, it kind of gets rid of that suspicion to a certain degree. I mean, that's how I interpret it. But Karen wasn't all for it. She's kind of like, no, I kind of want to leave. She's like, kind of screw you, but it's because she's kind of trying to turn over a new leaf, that she's like, okay, I'm going to give you a chance. And ultimately, he kind of screwed a pooch on that, especially when he ends up trying to kill Josh, because, Josh ended up finding out the truth that basically the tetra he's making isn't working, that is actually killing people, like, and they're covering up this fact. The fact of the matter is, Rafe and other people didn't say anything. It makes me, I don't know, because Rafe never said anything at the final confrontation in front of, like, the whole thing when they kind of walked away. She didn't say anything, so everyone kind of had their suspicions about that that's the meds not really working and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe for her, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, they got a good thing going here, so she's going to stick with it because it means surviving. So, but try to get Josh high on peyote and have one of the guys kill him, but he ended up killing him instead. And then there's this whole him tripping thing where he sees like a younger version of his dad. He's kind of like, oh, you know, time is kind of a weird thing. Like the boy that was there, I was like, oh, is that supposed to be Matt? But I guess it was supposed to be Josh as a young kid giving him a puzzle piece. And he's sitting there talking, and the way he's making it sound, it makes it sound like his dad is dead. He's like, he's like, yeah, your mom says hi. Like, even though his mom is, I assume, is gone. So it's kind of like, because there was that whole situation about him trying to track down his dad, but that never amounted to anything. So it's like, maybe that was something I missed back then, but it's like, I don't think he ever found out exactly what happened to his dad, but it's kind of like, I guess, assumed his dad was dead, and now just kind of proves it, maybe. But it's just kind of like, oh, time works differently. Kind of pointing out something that, when Dana pointed out last episode, she pointed out the whole, like, possibly time working a little differently. And in that moment, it wasn't necessarily just a trip. It was also because maybe it was pointing out a message that basically he is an adept. And it seems like they're important. Even he's like, he has somewhat of an idea, but he's not got a clear idea of what that is. Because in this episode, there was that shifter that ended up killing that dude Harry at the beginning. I feel bad for him. He got it bad. Like, it gutted him hard, and then it later on slit that dude Scott's throat, especially disguised as Brianna. But the fact of the matter is, it killed him. It's like, oh, you're not one of the ones. It got to Brianna. It's like, oh, you're one of the ones, and let her live. So why are they letting adepts live? Like, because there was something that his dad said is like, be careful what you believe. Because he was like, the professor that Josh met a couple episodes ago, the one that predicted the end of the world, she's an adept. She was an adept too. So it said, be careful what you believe. So maybe I'm thinking like, maybe adapts have this secret power. Because I figured their family had to be special, not only just because they're surviving. It's like, let's give another example. Let's take The Walking Dead, for example. Just because they're surviving doesn't necessarily make them special or anything like that. They're regular people that just found themselves in a crappy situation, and they're just finding the best to survive. Like, they've lived long enough, they've experienced a lot of stuff that they are able to survive. But it's like, from the very beginning, I was like, gotta be something special about their family. At first I was like, is it just something special about Karen? No, it's like the entire family, because it didn't kill Brianna, because whatever Josh is, it seems like maybe Karen is too, and it kind of passed down to their children. So, but like I said, maybe they have a special power where they can shape the world in a way that they want to. That's why it's like, be careful what you believe, because it's like, maybe as an adapt, the more he believes something, the more he can shape the world around him. I don't know. That's what I'm just kind of, because, I could be saying the word wrong, but it sounds like they were calling them adapts. So it's kind of like adapting to your new surroundings. So maybe they can adapt the world to their beliefs and stuff like that. The world shapes around their beliefs. That's the only thing I can really throw out there about that. But I mean, maybe that's why Josh, even though it's so, I don't know, maybe just why they're all special in that regard. We've seen, just the fact is that Dana's like connection, like I said, that whole dream thing last episode about knowing her mom was still alive and everything. Even though Brianna was like, just like, no, mom's dead. Even then knowing that like, oh, Brianna's alive. It's like, there you can kind of, you're like, okay, there's that whole like twin thing. But then with the whole mom thing, and the dream gets specific, like she's trapped in a volcano and stuff like that. It's like, there was something definitely more than that, but I did like how I didn't expect it to turn into a situation of like, oh, which Brianna's the real Brianna? I mean, it's like, I thought it's like, oh, mom, get away. That's a shifter, and she's going to take a knife and hold it to somebody. I was like, no, that turned out not to be the case. It's like both Briannas run towards each other and kind of tussle a little bit, and then Dana ends up shooting one of them, and that one ended up being the fake one. She basically figured out, because of the way Brianna was fighting, it's like she leads with like her left or something like that, and it's not something you could pick up from DNA or whatnot, is what she was saying. Which we kind of saw her and Brianna kind of at first butting heads about that whole situation. Like, basically, Brianna's kind of like, it sucks that you get to do what you want to. You get to be kind of all, like, carefree, not taking things seriously, and you get to run away, but you're always still loved. But it's like, me, I'm kind of like good, perfect child, so I'm held to a different standard than you. It's like, I kind of want to let loose a little. Like, it's like, it seems like she kind of wants to flip and become more like Brianna, just not really taking things seriously. Like the point, because like for Dana the entire time she thought she was getting drunk or whatever, but Brianna was lying to her the entire time. It's just kind of like, I wanted to do something to help you, make you feel better, because I know what you're going through, you know, the whole Martin thing. But Dana didn't appreciate it, because she's like, the one time I'm asking you to not be responsible, you decide to up and be responsible and kind of take this away from me. This is me kind of trying to, like, it's her way of dealing with the pain. It's like, which isn't a way of dealing with it, which is what Brianna was trying to do. It's like, that's not a way to deal with your pain, is burying yourself in drinks. It's not going to make your pain any, it'll numb you for a little while, but eventually it'll kick back in. So I don't know, like, you know, but they ended up butting heads, which is like, to me, I think it was like stupid of Brianna to kind of go off on her. It's like, you're driving away. It's like, oh, you want me to go? Fine, I'll go. So it's kind of like, why would you do that? You literally, I mean, more likely she was probably just going to go back to the camp, the place, and meet up with her mom and everything. But it was just like, why would you do that, go off on your own like that? Just kind of like with the whole Boomer, Wayne Brady situation, it does seem like that whole situation, it's one of those interesting things where it's like people's compounds are still standing. Like at the end of the episode, her dad's group is still there. It's not like they were killed or anything or wiped out. Same thing for Boomer. Like sadly, Martin and Jane aren't coming back, but still, it's just kind of like, hey, you're the chosen one, so you get to keep going forward. That's why you haven't been kind of screwed over by this situation. I mean, you've been screwed over mentally and emotionally and physically, but not to the point that you're actually dead. You're still kicking. So it's kind of interesting, because it's like, for a moment, you know it's got to feel weird for Karen, because for one moment she legitimately thought her dad was going. She's like, okay, maybe he turned over a new leaf, maybe he is just trying to welcome us. But it's like, nope, you're still a scumbag, because you're covering up the fact is that what you're selling to people is killing them. So not only you're a scumbag in that regard, you try to have my husband killed, which Matt didn't appreciate it neither, because Matt, like, you know, he was talking to Ewing was talking to Matt like, oh, I want you to stay here, you know, I could use a soldier like you. They're kind of bonding a little bit and everything. And then Matt just kind of got super pissed. He was just like, you're lucky I don't kill you. He's like, you bastard, you tried to kill my dad, screw you, and just essentially walking away. Because the girl Rafe kind of pointed out the fact is that Matt is kind of like his grandfather, because basically there was that guy Scott, like after Brianna took the keys and like, oh man, how did she do? Oh, she took, man, she better bring him back, and then Matt's like, or you're gonna do what? He's like, no, tell me what you're gonna do. She has to bring it back or what? He's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, good. So, because if you did do something, it basically involved me shoving your head and drowning you in a toilet. So it's like, yeah, just go somewhere else. And then Marifa's kind of like, wow, you really are like your grandfather in that regard. So, which is kind of like, hey, we're moving on to the next day and just try to figure everything out. And then lo and behold, bam, we have Josh coughing and stuff. I was like, okay, it must be part of the peyote thing or something like that. And it's like, nope, there's blood. I was like, oh God, he's sick. He's turning into a fever, because there's like no permanent cure for that. Even the Tetra, like even if it was good, you had that guy, the dude that got possessed and ended up killing Sally. Even he was taking it, but it only mitigated like the symptoms. It pushed it away for a little bit, but it had to constantly take it to for it to like warrant really anything, for it to really work. So Josh is in a situation now that he is infected, and it's like, what does that mean going forward for the rest of the family? I mean, so far at the end, the only one that knows is Karen, so it makes you wonder, is it going to be something to keep from the kids, or going to straight up tell them? Just a sucky situation, especially because it's like, because they're telling Josh to feel the waves, like what his dad was telling him. It's like, it still doesn't make sense what this is all about, what they're about, why they're playing, what they are as adepts, what that means going forward, what that means for everything. Still a very interesting episode, and I'm very curious to see where it all goes from there. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.